Alrighty, I guess we're gonna start we get started right now. We are continuing to learn the Rambam's Hilchos Tshuva, and we've made it to a very interesting chapter. This is chapter 8 in the Rambam's Halachas of Tshuva, where he discusses the concept of Olam Haba, the world to come. So this is it's definitely an important thing to think about, especially as we head into Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, Seres Yemei Tshuva. It just give us a little bit of a good perspective. So there's definitely a lot to talk about here. So, and we might even see chapter 9 as well. Chapter 9 is very short, just two halachas of the Rambam, but for sure go through chapter 8. Says the Rambam, Hatova hatzifunu latzadikim hi chayil haba. So the good that is hidden for the righteous people is olam haba, the world to come. V'achaim shein maves imaim. This is the life which there is no death that comes with it. V'atova shein imaim ra. In its complete goodness without any evil. Hu shekasa b'Torah lamani tavlach ve'archta yamim. This is what the Torah means when it says, it's like good will be granted to you and you will live long. Lamdu. So he says that the tradition is that what that means is lamani tavlach li'olam shekulo tov. When you say something that I'll do good for you, it means the world which is totally good. Ve'arachta yamim, I will lengthen your days. When the pasuk says that, it means le'olam shekulo arach, means the world which is very long, endlessly long, which is the world to come. V'zeh olam haba, says the Rambam, that is what the world to come is. That is olam haba. Schar tzadikim, the reward for righteous, hu sheyizkeh l'noam zeh, that they're going to take pleasure in this world. V'yu b'tovazu, and they're gonna enjoy this goodness. Upiron rishayim, but the punishment for the wicked people who shalo yizku l'chaim ilu, they're not going to merit this world. Ella yichartzu v'yamusu, they're going to be cut off, they're going to die. V'chol mi she'enu zocha l'chaim ilu, and anyone who doesn't merit this life, this life of the world to come, hu hames she'enu chai le'olam ela nichras berisho v'ava kibahima. So this is the death, that there is no living in the world, and rather he's cut off in his wickedness, and he is diminished. He eventually perishes like an animal. When the Torah talks about a punishment, sometimes you don't do something, you get karis, that the Torah describes. So it says around this is what karis means. Shenemar he karis and nevshahi. And he says the tradition of that pasuk is he karis b'olam hazeh. You're going to be cut off in this world, tikaris olam haba, and you're going to be cut off even from the world to come. Kolomar, meaning to say, she'osa nefesh shepirsha min haguf b'olam hazeh, that this soul which is separated from the body in this world, inu zocha l'chay olam haba, is not going to merit the world to come. Ella gam mina olam haba nechretes. He's even going to be cut off from the world to come. Okay, so that's the first about Olam Haba. The second one is a pretty famous Rambam because it's very controversial. So it says the Rambam in Halacha 2, 8:2 in Hilchos Tshuva, Ha'olam Haba ein bo guf ugvia ela nefashos tzadikim bavad below guf kimlach yesharis. Says the Rambam, you want to know what the world to come is going to look like? There's going to be no body, no physical form. It's going to be just the souls, just the nefesh of the tzaddikim. They're going to be like the angels. Hoyel ve'imbo gvias, imbo lo achilav lo shiv lo davar mikol advarim shagufus bnei adam tzrichin lahan olam haba. So since there's no physical being, so there's going to be no eating, there's going to be no drinking, nothing that the physical beings need. There's gonna be no bad things that happen to the body that happen in this world. Could go in yeshiva, v'amida, sitting, standing, v'shena, misa, sleeping, and death, v'atzav, and sadness, u'schok, laughter, v'kayotzaban. None of that is going to exist in the world to come. There's There's no eating, there's no drinking, no tashmish, no relations. Ela tzadikim yoshvim. Rather, what's going to happen? The tzadikim are just going to be sitting. Ve'atrusayim b'rashem. They're going to be crowns on their head. V'nanim miziv hashchina, and they're going to benefit from the shchina. Harini spar zeh. Harini spar lecha she'ein sham guf lefi she'ein sham achil. So this means that there's not going to be any physical being because there's no eating or drinking. When the phrase of Chazal, when they say that tzaddikim are just going to be sitting, it doesn't really mean sitting. It's a metaphor. Kolomar tzaddikim mitzuyin sham means that the tzaddikim are just going to be found there below Amal, below Yagiyah, without having to work or labor. And when we say that the crowns are going to be on the tzaddikim's head, kolomar deya, that's talking about knowledge. A crown is a metaphor for knowledge. Sheyedu shebiglallah zachu l'chayolam haba mitzuya imohem v'hi atar shalahan ken inyan shnamar shlomo ba'atar shatar lo imo. They're going to know that it was because of their knowledge, that this deya that they were able to achieve in this world, in our world, that's what merited them to have olam haba. V'harehu amru v'simchas olam arusho. That the joy forever is on their head. Pasuk in Yeshaya ve'ina simcha guf kidei shetanuach arush, and the simcha just means the joy is not physical. It means joy is not the physical entity which can rest on your head. So kach atara, so too it means by this crown. Shamru chachamim kan hi hayediyah. It's talking about knowledge. Maza shamru nanim miziv hashchina. What does it mean when they say they delighted in the they benefited from the Shekhinah of Hashem? Shiyodim u'masikim memti zakadosh baruch hu. They comprehend the truth of Hashem. Ma she'inam yodim vehem beguf ha'ifal shafal, which they cannot grasp while they're in a body. So to summarize that long halacha too, Rambam is saying that in the world to come, when those who are merit olam haba, so it's going to be no physical being, nothing is going to be physical, no eating, no drinking, etc. It's just going to be tzadikim just benefiting from they're going to be sitting without. I mean, sitting is a metaphor. They're just going to be they're just going to be there, and being close to Hashem's Shekhinah. That's how the Rambam describes olam haba. So this Rambam I mentioned is a little bit controversial. So the Ramah, there are many people who argued against the Rambam about this, but particularly the Yad Ramah, he was upset with this Rambam, and he says, how can that be true? There are Gemaras which talk about what's going to happen in the world to come. The one Gemara in particular, the Gemara in Pesachim says, everyone's there's going to be a big meal. So we're going to talk about in the Rambam coming up soon, that there's going to be a big meal. All the tzaddikim are going to be there. And the Gemara wants to know who's going to lead benching. So they say, is Avram going to lead benching? No. Is Yitzchak going to be lead benching? Is Moshe going to lead benching? And finally, David agrees to lead benching. So yes, okay, if David's going to lead benching, means they're really going to have a meal, and they're obviously going to be physical beings. So how could you say, Rambam, that there isn't going to be physical beings in the world to come? So that's the question on the Rambam. There are those who answer for the Rambam. I think in particular the Rambam's son, Rav Avraham ben Rambam. So I think his approach is that there's something called Olam Haba, and then there's something else called Tchias Amesim, when the revival of the dead. And those are not those who says that they're the same thing. But this is definitely a lengthy discussion, and requires a lot more research, a lot more time, a lot more effort to understand what it means Olam Haba, what it means Tchias Amesim. But just to know that, as we mentioned this Rambam, to know that this is a Rambam which definitely inspired many discussions among many Talmidei Chachamim. So the Rambam continues. We're going to see that he continues along this theme because he's describing Olam Haba. And again, in the Rambam's view, Olam Haba is not a physical thing. It's pretty much entirely spiritual. Kol nefesh hamura b'inyan zeh. Anytime the soul is mentioned in regard to this context, einu neshama tzrich laguf. It means a soul which does not need the body. Ela ela tsuras hanefesh shehi hadeya shehi siga me'abora kefi kocha. Um, this refers to the form of a soul, the knowledge which it comprehends, according to its strength. Ve'asaga adeos, and he furthers to shar maisim v'hi atzura shebe'arnu yanu perak v'hi melchus seyatura he increased nefesh beninzeh. So that's what he describes as the soul. That's what he describes as the nefesh. Chaim elu, the fi she'eni ma'im maves. So he says this life, which is going to be Olam Haba is describing, since there is no death, she'eni maves ela mimar saguf, ve'in. So death is only associated with body alone and not with the nefesh, says the Rambam. Ve'in sham guf, and there is no body, so there's going to be no death. Nikru tzur chaim. This is called the tzror, the bundle or the bond of life. Shneimar, the pasuk says in Shmuel Aleph, va'isa nefesh, adoni tzrora b'tzur chaim. V'zeu haschar. This is the reward. She'in schar l'mayla mimenu. There is no reward above this. Mimenu ve'atova she'in acharei atova. There is no good that can be higher than this good, which is the good of Olam Haba. V'hi shisavula kol neviim. This is what all the prophets desired. He said there's so many different terms that refer to the Olam Haba. He says, for example, Har Hashem, Umakom Kojo, the place of His holiness, the mountain of Hashem, V'derech HaKadosh, the holy path, V'chatirus Hashem, the courts of Hashem, Noam Hashem, the pleasantness of Hashem, Ohel Hashem, the tent of God, Heichal Hashem, the palace of Hashem, Ubeis Hashem, the house of Hashem, Shar Hashem, the gate of Hashem. All these things he says are referring to Olam Haba. V'cham karla derech mashal. The sages, they refer to these things as a metaphor. Zeu hamizamenes tzadikim seuda. So he says that the Chachamim, when they want to refer to Olam Haba, world to come, they refer to it as a seuda, a feast. V'korin la b'chol makom Olam Haba, but it's colloquially, he says, referred to as Olam Haba. But he says even the fact that they call it a feast, seuda, he says even that is a metaphor. It's just a way of describing something which is just purely good. That's how he's understanding it. And therefore, says the Rambam, if that's true, if Olam Haba is the greatest reward, then Hanikama, the revenge or the punishment, Nekama Gdola Mimenu, which there is no greater punishment, Shatikaris and Nefesh Vlotizak and Chaim, it's that soul will be cut off and you will not merit this life of the world to come. Shnemar Yikaris Tikaris and Nefesh Yavunaba. V'zeu Avedon. This is the obliteration, which the Nevi'im, they call it Be'er Shachas, the pit of destruction, Ve'tifta, or obliteration, Ve'aluka, or a bonfire, Ve'kolashon, maybe bleach, I don't know, Ve'kolashon, Kliya, Ve'ashchata, and all these synonyms, they're all referred to, they mean nullification and destruction. This is the highest level of destruction and nullification. Because there is no renewal of this loss and it can never be recovered. Because it's logical, if Olam Haba is the greatest good, then to not be able to receive it would be the greatest punishment and the ultimate destruction. And then he contrasts what the Rambam does now. So after he described a little bit what Olam Haba is, he's going to describe how it's different from maybe how other people might think what the best the world to come would be. It says Shema Tekel Beinecha Tovazu. Lest you think lightly of this, Ella, he says, maybe you might think that the reward for doing mitzvahs of a person is to completely follow in Hashem's way. So maybe you're going to think this is the reward. The reward might be, you might think mistakenly, says the Rambam, you're going to have the best food, there's nose, and Velovich Big Day Sheish, you're going to have the fanciest clothes, V'shochin Baalei Shem, you're going to dwell in these fancy palaces, Mishtamish B'kli Kesav Izav, and you're going to have the best silverware made of gold and silver. He says maybe that's what you think. Dvar Madom Lailu Kmoshim Madam Melu Arabim Atipshim Ulim Hashtufim Bazima. It says that is basically how um other people who, foolish. That's how they might think what the reward is. He says, "Val chachamim balei adeya," but our sages and people who are wise, yedu shekol advar ma'ilu, that those things which he just described, divrei havai, they're empty. Behevel, worthless him. Ve'im bahem to'eles. They don't really have a purpose. Ve'in tova gdola etzleinu b'olam hazeh. Alim pnei shanu v'ali guf gvia. This is the only reason why we think that those things are good, are actually good things, is because we're physical beings. V'chol dvar ma'ilu tzarchei agufeim. Those are physical needs. Ve'in hanefesh misav elahem. But the soul doesn't really want them. The only reason why we desire those things is because it's a need for our physical being, so that our bodies will be satisfied. But when there is no physical being anymore, um, which is what the Rambam again is describing for Olam Haba. We're not going to be a physical being. All these things are going to be worthless. So the Rambam now, he's saying, he's going to do in the next few sentences, he's going to basically say, he's going to put his hands up and he's going to say, the truth is, nobody can understand what Olam Haba is. It's so great that it's basically indescribable. And any way that we could describe it would be actually would actually diminish how great it actually is. Because he says at the end of the day, we're physical beings, and the only goodness that we can actually understand is goodness that relates to physicality. But the goodness that's going to come in the world to come, Olam Haba, is something which has nothing to do with physicality, and therefore it's pretty much on not understandable for us. So he says, She'inanu Tova Gdola Sheteh Nefesh B'Olam Haba, the greatness that's going to happen for us, for our soul in the world to come. Ein Shum Derech B'Olam Hazeh L'Hasig V'Leidos. There is no way to describe it in this world. She'inanu Yodim B'Olam Hazeh L'Tova Zaguf V'La Anu Misavim, because we only know in this world the goodness that comes to the physical being, and that's what we desire. Aval Osa Tova Gdola An Mi'od. He says, but the goodness that's going to come in the world to come, it has no description, has no end. And the only way we can understand it is through a metaphor. But in reality, he says there is no comparison. We try to compare it with bodily pleasures like food and drink. It doesn't make sense. It's so great that there is no comparison. There's nothing that's like it. Ushamar David, this is what David Melch said. How great is the good that you have hidden for those who fear you. He says, in David, he desired so much for the world to come. And then he quotes a pasuk which we've been saying every day. Had I not believed that I would see the goodness in the land of Hashem. He says that the goodness of the world to come, there is no man, there is no human being who has the capability of understanding the goodness of the world to come, only Hashem. Now all the goodness that the Nevi'im describe for us in Bnei Israel, for what's going to come to us. If you look in like Yeshaya or different Nevi'im, where they describe or even the Pesukim in the Torah, that all the goodness that's going to come to us. So says the Rambam, what's that describing? If we can't understand Olam Haba, so says the Rambam, that's talking about goodness that's going to happen when Mashiach comes. When the rulership, the dominion over the world goes back into Israel's hands. But the goodness of the world to come, but the goodness of the world to come, he says that we can't understand that. The Nevi'im didn't talk about that because any description that they would have of it would only diminish the goodness of the world to come. Ushi Yeshayahu Amar, this is what Yeshayahu, he says, Ayin lo rasa Elokim du lasecha yaseh lemechak elo. He says, no eye has ever seen Hashem except for you, what you will do for those who wait for you. Kolomar, what does that mean? Says the Rambam describes, Hatova shalor rasa uso ayin navi, the goodness which no eye, no vision of a navi. V'lo usa el Elokim. It was only able to be understood by Hashem. Asa usa Elokim, Hashem is going to do. Hashem created la'adam shemechakelo, for those who wait for him. Amru chachamim, says the chachamim, they describe kol nevim kulon, that the sage, that the neviim, the prophets, they only prophesied lo nivu eli musa Mashiach, they only prophesied about the days of Mashiach of olam haba, for the world to come. Ayin lo rasa elokim zulosecha, no eye has seen except for Hashem. Zeh, and then okay, so that's olam haba. That's what the Rambam describes what olam haba is. So it's a world which is endless, full of life, full of goodness, with not a physical being, a spiritual being. And the point is that we can't really even comprehend how good it will be, and the goodness that's described by the prophets, by Nevi'im, it was talking about Mashiach, because we can't, and there is nobody who can understand what Olam Haba is. And the Rambam finishes this chapter on Olam Haba. He says, why is it called Olam Haba? He says, Zeh shekar osu chachamim Olam Haba. He says, the reason why it's called Olam Haba is not lo mipnei she'enu matzoi ata v'zeh olam obeit v'achrach v'osu olam. In Davar Kain, he says, it's not because you might think that it's called Olam Haba because, we have this world, the world that we live in right now, and this world's going to end, and then there's going to be a new world that's going to come. He says, no, that's not what it means. Ella, why is it called Olam Haba? Harehu matzoi v'omid. It exists, and it exists right now, and it's present. Shneimar, he quotes a pasuk to prove it. Asher tzafanta lirecha po'alecha. How great is the good that you have hidden, that you have made, which means it already exists. So he says, okay, so why is it called the world to come? It says it's called Olam Haba because it comes to man, comes to a person after they lived in this world. Shanu kayamim bo baguf v'nefesh, which we exist with a body and a soul, v'zonim tzalachol adam b'rishona, and that is the world that every person lives in before Olam Haba, and in this world. So that's why it's called Olam Hazen, Olam Haba. Let's do chapter 9. Let's do chapter 9. So that was a discussion about Olam Haba. So now the Rambam, he wants to address the following. So he says, "Me'achar shenoda shematan scharin shal mitzvah v'atova shenizka la'im shemarnu derech Hashem l'kasa b'torah hi chayil ma'aba shenemar l'mani tav lach v'archai yamim." So he says, okay, so once I just described that all the mitzvos and the good that we will merit if we follow Hashem's way, we observe His Torah. So that's all going. The word is Olam Haba, like the pasuk says, ve'anekama, and the punishment shenokum or Hashem shazbe orchos atzedek, ksuas b'torah hi karis, and the punishment for not following Hashem's ways and abandoning the path is karis, being cut off and not getting Olam Haba. So ma zeh shakasav b'chol Torah kula im tishmu yigilachem kach v'im lo tishmu yikraschem kach b'cholos and dvarim ba'olam hazeh. So he says, so I don't understand. The Torah describes all the time, if you follow Hashem's way, then Hashem's going to give you all these good things. And if you don't follow Hashem's way, you're not going to get all these good things. For example, you could go into the Rambam Sava, you're going to have plenty, V'rav, or you're going to have famine, Umilchama, you might be allowed have war, V'shalom, or you're going to have peace, Umalchus, Shvelus, you have kingship, or you're going to have you're going to be humble nation, V'yeshivas Aretz, or you're going to dwell on the land of Regalis, or you're going to be kicked out, V'yatzlachas, Maisa, you're going to have success, Sidu, or maybe you're going to lose stuff, Usharkol Devrebris, or whatever other things that are mentioned in the treaty that we have with Hashem. Kolos and environment. Says the Rambam, if all the goodness happens for the world to come, then what are all these things that the Torah is promising us? That if we do good, we get rewarded. If we don't do good, we don't get rewarded. Says the Rambam, this is his answer. Kol osan advarim emes. He says, indeed, that's true. What the Torah says is true. V'yu ובזמן שאנו עושים כל מצוות התורה, הגיעו אלינו הטובות עולם הזה כולן. That when we follow the Torah, then indeed all these good things that are happening in this world, and he's not talking about Olam Haba right now, he's talking about Olam Hazeh. He says that if we follow Shem's ways, we're going to get benefit in this world. Bizman shanu ovrin alayan, tikrena usaro saksuvo. So when we don't listen to Hashem, we're indeed going to get the punishments that are listed in the Torah. Be'afal pikein, she says the Rambam, even though that's true, says that's not really the point. In usan atovos him sov matan slanjal mitzvos. Flow son arose him sof and the kamashanuk bimi over alcohol mitzvos. He says that the goodness that the Torah is that we're going to get is not the end. It's not the end of the goodness that we're going to get, and the punishments that we would get for not listening is not the end of the punishments that we will get for not listening to the mitzvahs. Says rather this is how you have to understand it. Kadosh Baruch Hu nasan lanu Torah zu eitz chaim he. God gave us the Torah, and the Torah is a tree of life. We say Eitz Chaim Hilamachasikim, but we're talking about the Torah. The Torah is a tree of life for all those who hold on to it. The Torah gives you life. The Chola Osek Kol Kasuba, and anyone who does everything the Torah says, V'yedu Dea Gemura Nechona, and is able to understand the proper knowledge, the correct knowledge. Zocha Ba L'chai Olam Haba. So he merits for the world to come. Ulefi Godel Ma'asav. And according to the greatness of what he does, and the extent of his knowledge, he merits. But Torah promises that if we do these things, we follow Hashem's way with happiness, nefesh, and to do it with a good spirit, and we constantly meditate about Shem's Torah, that if we do that, if we commit ourselves to doing that, then the Torah promises us, says the Rambam, that that Hashem will remove all the stuff which prevent us from fulfilling what we want to do. Kigon, holy, sickness, umechama, war, virav, famine, v'kayotze behen. V'yashpia lanu kol hatovos hamachzikin es yadinu lasos haTorah, and he's going to instill in us all the goodness which strengthen our hands, so that we can do what the Torah says. And what are those? How is he going to strengthen us? Kigon, with sava, with plentiness, shalom, peace, virboy, kasav, zava, a lot of silver and gold, so that we don't have to constantly spend all our days seeking for all the things that our physical body needs. We're going to be able to sit freely, to sit and learn Hashem's knowledge, mitzvah, and to do the mitzvos, to do so that we will merit the world to come. And this is what the Torah says. After it promises about the goodness of this world, it says that you're going to have this tzedakah, that charity will remain for those who take care of the commandments. And so the Torah says that if we leave the Torah, and we involve ourselves with the emptiness of this world, that Bnei Israel, they got plenty, and they rebelled. That the Hashem's din of truth is going to remove all the good stuff that happened in this world, which is what strengthened us to rebel in the first place. And he's going to bring us all the bad things, which prevent us from acquiring the world to come, so that destroyed in their wickedness. Because you didn't serve Hashem, and you left and you served your enemies that Hashem sent to you. Nimtza perish. What this means, Kolomar, what does this mean? Ima vadatem is Hashem. If you serve Hashem besimcha, with joy, ushmartem darcho, and you keep His path. Mashpielachem abrachos ailu. You're going to have these brachos, these gifts. Umarchik hakalos mekem, and the curses are going to be distant from you. Ashatu pnuyim, so that you are free. Lizchachem b'Torah, to become wise in Hashem's Torah. V'lasuk and to dwell in it, so that you merit the world to come. Olam, so that you'll be able to get the goodness of the world, which is totally good. We're talking about the world to come. And that you'll be able to have lengthy days in the world, which doesn't end. So you're going to merit two worlds, the Chayim Tovim, goodness in this world, and then which will bring you to the world to come. That if you don't acquire chachma, Hashem's Torah, umaisim tovim, and good acts in this world, you're not gonna have anything to acquire the world to come. Ki ma'aseh v'cheshbon, he quotes the pasuk in Koheles, v'cheshbon v'dei v'chacham b'shal. V'imazavtem is Hashem, but if you leave Hashem, u'shkitem b'meichel, you mess up b'meichel b'mishta v'zonos v'dom la'am, you basically come to involved in the world's pleasures. Maybe alechem kol hakalos ha'elu, you're going to have all these curses, u'meisir kol brachos, and all the brachos are going to be removed for you. Ad sheyichlu yameichem behavala, until you have these empty days. Upachah v'yilchem le'pnoi, you're not going to have a free heart, v'lo guf shalem, and not a complete body. Lasos mitzvos kadesha tovdu michayel amava. So you're not going to do the mitzvos, and you're going to lose the world to come. Nimta shavatem shnei lamos, and it's going to come out that you're going to lose two worlds. You're going to lose your happiness in this world and in the world to come. That a person is busy in this world, holy in sickness, or fighting, or hunger. But then you're not going to be able to have the time to try to understand Hashem's Torah. You're not going to be able to do mitzvos, which would merit you for the world to come. And then he finishes, we'll just read this one outside. It says the Rambam to conclude chapter 9, he says, and that's why, why we should merit Mashiach. He says, waiting for Mashiach. He says, why are you waiting for Mashiach? Is it just going to, what's Mashiach going to look like? So says the Rambam, it's going to be the same thing. It's just that we're going to be under our own rulership, and therefore we're going to have ability to learn Torah more, do mitzvos more, because that really is the point. Okay, so that's the end. That's where we'll stop for tonight. There's still one more chapter in the Rambam. We'll see what we do next week. But this was definitely a good explanation, good understanding from the Rambam of how he views Olam Haba, and what the point of this world is, in relation to Olam Haba. That when we do what Hashem wants, then we'll merit the true goodness, which is the world to come. Everyone have a good night.